probably not going to be very happy or politically correct. So most of you probably won't want to watch this because vlogs are supposed to be happy and uplifting, and this is definitely not going to be one of those. So I won't be offended if you don't watch it. If any of you have watched a previous video that I've made maybe about a year ago called Rise Against Sexual Violence, you know why. And it's because about 9 years ago, almost to the day, I was raped. And actually on my 14th birthday is when he was arrested. And so because of that, this time of year, especially on my birthday, it brings back those memories, and it's very hard. And especially as the years go by and knowing that he gets closer and closer to that release date, it makes me scared and really just negatively affects me. And the purpose of this video is because I want you guys to be aware of the fact that not everyone in this world is good for you. I feel like sometimes the victims of sexual violence, they get a bad rap. Like, oh, you know, she must have, you know, been dressing slutty, or, you know, something. You know, there's always something. And I feel like that's not right, because the same thing happened to me. When I told my friends at school what had happened, because of the way that I dress sometimes at school, I had a lot of people that I thought were my friends tell me that I deserved it, or that it wasn't really rape. It, you know, I was asking for it because of how I dressed. And that's hurtful, because that event really changed who I am as a person. Before I was raped, I was a very positive and uplifting person, and you know, I really was completely different from how I am now, because that event made me like create this like shell outside of, you know, me. And I right away really distanced myself from people, and I didn't want to let anyone close to me again, because the person who raped me, I was friends with. I trusted him, and I thought he was, you know, my friend. And so now that I have a daughter, for the minute that I found out that she was a girl, although I wanted a girl, it scared me, because I was afraid that one day something that happened to me could happen to her. And I don't want that, because, you know, when someone goes through something traumatic like that, it's not something, you know, that you can just go to the doctor and, you know, have it be fixed. And trust me, I have tried. My parents put me into counseling, and I was in counseling like 2 days a week for years. And that counselor had made me go to a psychiatrist who put me on lots of different drugs to make me not so depressed, because after that I fell into a really deep depression, and I considered harming myself a lot. And you know, I became not me. And I just want parents to be very cautious of their children and who their children are hanging out with. My parents, you know, not that it's their fault, because it's in no way is, but my parents, they didn't really know who my friends were. They didn't know who I was hanging out with. My own dad was, sleeping on the couch when I snuck out of the house to go and hang out with that guy. So my parents had no idea. And I think as parents, we need to be aware of who our children are hanging out with and who they're talking to and who's talking to them. I met this guy at the mall, which my parents dropped me off at the mall every Friday. That was our thing. But that's where I met him. And, they had no idea that I was staying up almost every night on AOL, because that was the thing back then, to talk to him. They had no idea. And I feel like if certain measures were taken, or if I had been educated about something like this, maybe I wouldn't have been so trusting, because I was a really naive person. I didn't even know what reaping was, until it happened to me. And, once it does, it takes something from you that you can't get back. That's how I lost my virginity, and I didn't know anything about sex. I'd never seen a penis in my life. And, a few short weeks after it happened, I'm sitting in front of a detective having to, explain, the most horrific thing that's ever happened to me, and having them take pictures and statements, and then a year later going to court hearings and, having to tell the prosecutor who I am and why I'm here and all of that. And I did all of that at the age of 14. I was still a child. And so around this time of year is when I remember all of that. And it's not a good time of year for me. I don't like my birthday because of it. Or if you're depressed now. But I really feel like this is something that needs to be talked about. I don't think it gets, victims of sexual violence, myself included in the beginning, and, sometimes even now, are very closed about it. For many years after it happened, I felt really dirty. I didn't want to talk about it to anyone, and especially because the people that I had talked to about it did not turn out well. I had a newspaper going around school, like the newspaper clipping of they couldn't list me by name because I was underage, but we all knew that it was about me, going around school. And so that was awful. Kids can be really cool sometimes. But a lot of times victims, they don't want to share what happens to them. And I totally 150% understand that. And I do not judge if you don't want to share, because it takes a lot, and it really takes a lot to be trusting of the someone that you're telling the story to, because you don't want to feel judged for it, because inside you're already judging yourself, and that's okay. But I feel like a big part of the healing process is talking about it and educating other people about it so that this stops. And so that's why I'm sharing it with you guys. Because even though it's really painful and really hard, and it is, I'm completely opening myself up and being vulnerable to the internet, which is sometimes, just as cruel as children. But I feel like even if I affect one person with what I'm saying, just one, that helps, because that one person can tell another person, and that person can tell another person, and you know what, before we know it, we have this whole thing going. If any of you ever feel like you have gone through something like this, or even if you haven't and you just want someone to talk to, you know, and ask questions or something, you can talk to me. You know, I don't mind. And for those of you, I'm sure I may get hate on this, because I've gotten hate on it in the past. Really, just for a second, at least be open-minded, and try not to rush to a conclusion that you don't know. That's where we're at. I'm sorry for it, you know, being not happy. I'll try to make a happier vlog later. But yeah, bye.